WealthDynamics is a profiling system for entrepreneurs. It allows you to find your natural path to wealth. People like Bill Gates makes their money very different from George Soros. Bill Gates creates, he doesn't even run his business. George Soros, he trades. People like Donald Trump, they make their money by going out and meeting people and doing deal making. Other people like Ray Kroc, who started McDonald's, they go through by creating systems. Every one of us has a natural path to wealth. The question is, what is your path? WealthDynamics explains that there are 8 different paths to wealth, and one of those paths are yours. Successful people do not make their money through their action. They actually make it through their attraction. We have a saying which is that wealth is not how much money you have, it's what you're left with when you lose all your money.
This is a great question. Why do you need a weekend for WealthDynamics? Well, I guess if you think about the concept of a weekend, just 2 days, an entire lifetime, it really is a very, very small part of a lifetime. But it's 2 days that actually can, as it has in my case, totally change your view of wealth. If you look at me, for example, I've been a successful entrepreneur, and like many entrepreneurs, I've had up times and then down times, and up times and down times, and so on. That tends to be how it is for most entrepreneurs. When you come through WealthDynamics, though, what you get absolute clarity on is what we call your wealth profile. And there are just 8 wealth profiles. That is to say, there are 8 paths to wealth. And to explain that, just imagine for the moment that we were here in Jakarta and there was a seminar going on about wealth creation. And let's just imagine for the moment that Donald Trump, the successful real estate entrepreneur, was actually running that seminar. And he was saying, here's what you do for wealth. And we would go to that seminar and we might think, gee, Mr. Trump has made a lot of money and continues to make it, so we'll do everything that Mr. Trump says. And then, maybe about 3 days later, someone, say, called Bill Gates comes into town. And he says, oh, no, here's the path to wealth. This is what you must do, create lots of things, and so on and so forth. So now what happens, and by the way, it could get even better. Maybe 3 days later, Warren Buffett, the second richest man in the world, would come in. And he would say, well, no, this is how you make wealth. And so what you're getting is 3 different stories. In fact, it's possible for you to get 8. The key thing is, which one is yours? And it's interesting when you think about wealth dynamics or wealth profiling, that is one of the keys to wealth dynamics. It's interesting to think that, again, there are just these 8, and it has nothing to do with what you do. It has everything to do with who you are. And the really interesting thing is that for many of us, what we do is in conflict with who we are. So for example, in my case, I found out that what were winning formulas became losing formulas. For example, I'm what's called a creator profile. And I guess it's obvious what a creator profile loves to do. We love to spend time creating things. We really do. And then when I would create things and get value from those things, guess what I would do? Well, one of the things I might do is invest my money, for example, in the stock market. And guess what happened? Because creators have absolutely no sense of timing, my timing in going in was absolutely incorrect. Now, by the way, I do it a totally different way. And it's the same as Bill Gates. Bill Gates is really great at creating things, but he's not very good, like many of us, at running his company. So he has someone else running his company who happens to be what we call a supporter profile. Now, a supporter profile is someone like Rudy Giuliani, who are great leaders, or Jack Welch, for example, who are great leaders, or in the case of Microsoft, would be Steve Ballmer. So Steve Ballmer is absolutely great at running companies, and what he does is free up Mr. Gates so Mr. Gates can generate more and more wealth by creating, not by running. And so it is for all of us, irrespective of where we are in terms of what we do, that there is this one natural path for you and I to wealth.
Every one of us, there is a time when we're in our flow. That is when everything comes naturally. For a lot of us, what we're doing to make money feels like hard work. Believe it or not, all the most successful people in the world, when they're doing what they love, that's when they make the most money. So what is the path that will allow you to find your wealth?
People who've been involved, dear friends of mine, for 3 years, struggling to run a successful business. As a result, but doing what you and I would consider pretty well. But then through Wealth Dynamics, they're able to see what their profile is and then hook up with other profiles that they need to really take that business to a new level. The result for this particular person, her name is Rill, has been a 10-fold increase in the size of their business. There's another friend of mine, his name is Rob Nixon. Rob Nixon, it turns out, he never knew this, but it turns out he's what we call a star profile. Now, Rob was working in a business, in fact, part-owned a business that was involved in selling things into the accounting workspace, that is the public accounting profession. The business that he had was actually called Business Fitness, and what it did was sold knowledge management systems into accountancy practices. So if you will, a very systematic, or what we would call mechanic profile business. And Rob says this. Rob says that the very day that he discovered his profile, it completely changed his life. Now, he was already successful. Just to give you some idea of that, he had some 400 clients around the world, predominantly in Australia and New Zealand, who were paying him around $17,000 a year to get his services. So it's not a bad business when you think about it. But when he discovered his wealth profile, what he did that day, literally that day, although he didn't like what he saw at first, that day he went back to his partner, his name is Stuart, and said, Stuart, I've now realized that I'm a particular profile. Of course, Stuart didn't know what on earth Rob was talking about, but Rob certainly knew. I'm a star profile. As a result, what I'm doing does not fit my true path. And I'm still going to keep the ownership of my shares in the business, but now I'm going to create something new. He went away and that afternoon created, as a star would, because stars is all about brand and magnifying the opportunity that is there. And so Rob created robnixon.com. He says that, again, selling into the accounting profession space, he said to me about 11 weeks after that, in fact, almost exactly 11 weeks after that, Paul, in the last 11 weeks, I've generated an additional $100,000. Interestingly, 2 Friday mornings ago, I had breakfast with Rob. Rob's projection for this particular year, simply as he put it, as a result of knowing my profile, is an additional $1 million in revenue. So the results from Wealth Dynamics are just spectacular. And importantly, they're not those kind of motivational results that you get from going to seminars and you get all hyped up and then the motivation goes. What you get through Wealth Dynamics is a strategy for life and, most importantly, a support for life as well.